Hi, I'm Sophia Rio, and I'm here today with Bev Stalnaker, one of our original members of Community. Bev, we all know that Bob Orem played a significant role in Community Lutheran Church. Tell me, who was Bob Orem?
Well, Bob was born in Baltimore City in 1921. That's a long time ago. His mother married Walter Williams in 1924, and they had 3 girls and 2 boys. As a boy, he worked in the neighborhood hardware store. And he graduated from Polytechnical High School and went to night school for his college education. He joined the Army and later married Daisy Parsons in 1943, I believe, and they had 3 children, Ron, Connie, and Sharon. And during this time, he built their house by himself in Baltimore County while he was working full-time at the phone company, and he was going to night school.
Wow.
I don't know how he ever did it. And him and his family attended St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church in Lutherville, Maryland. And he served on the President Council several times and did Sunday school all the time. And actually, I met Bob in 1970, and we worked at the phone company. And in 1979, he was divorced, and he moved to Baltimore City, where he served on a lot of neighborhood boards and things like that. And he started a group to help the elderly stay in their homes. And actually, there is an award. There's a Bob Orem award to this day that's given every year to somebody in that area. And we were both active in the Baltimore Bicycle Club. You know, he did the biking, I did the sag wagon, you know, that type of thing.
Right.
And he retired in 1983 from the phone company with 41 years service.
Wow.
And we were married in 1986. And I retired in 87. And we moved to Ocean View in April of 1988. And 9 days later, he was in the hospital with cardiac arrest and heart attack. Then he had bypass surgery. And actually had really good 10 years that he had no problems at all. And he's very active. He started a board at the American Heart Association. Actually, his doctor said, "You're going to work on the American Heart Association, and we're not letting you out of the hospital."
Wow.
So that was just another project. You know.
Yeah.
And he worked with an inmate at Sussex County and Georgetown. And they did a Bible study each month, and he did that for about 9 years. And then they transferred this fellow up to Smyrna, and that's when Bob started having more medical problems. In 1990, he was elected to the council in Ocean View, town council. And back then, they didn't call it the mayor, but it was called president of council. But you know, he was our mayor for 10 years.
Wow. Well, it's apparent that Bob is a mover and a shaker. How did he use his skills in the establishment of Community?
Well, the church had always been Bob's life, you know. I mean, ever since he was a little guy. Well, he was never little, I don't think, but Bob was 6'4", you know, good 200 pounds. So he was never small. But actually in 1989, Bob and I started going to St. Peter's Lutheran Church down Ocean City. And as usual, he got involved in the council, and he was on the long-range planning group, because he always thought ahead. He always planned ahead. 5-10 years down the road, he was thinking, what can we do? What can we do?
Right.
So he brought up the idea that, you know, why can't we have our own church in Delaware? You know, there's nothing here except Milford's up north. That's a good 40-45 minutes. We're not going to do that, you know. And of course, Ocean City wasn't that far, but in the summertime, it's a real bear, you know, to get back and forth and that kind of stuff. So he started thinking about what we're going to do. He talked to the outreach group, you know, the LCA, and they said, "Nah, there's no way that the church is going to work there, you know, because it's nothing but old retirees, and you know, you need children to start a church."
Right.
So of course, you know, Bob never took no for an answer, and he said, "Well, you know, there are congregations that do function without children, and, it'll work.
Sure.
So he said,
Now,
You know.
obviously, families would come later.
they didn't agree, but,
Yeah.
and that so things progressed,
Uh-huh.
And in July 1991, I think it was, is when he started talking to the Presbyterian minister, which is
Mhm.
Carrie Shaw. And Carrie and him had been friends for years. In fact, Carrie was the first person to visit Bob when he was in the hospital with his cardiac arrest and all that
Wow.
stuff. One of the neighbors, our neighbors, said that the people that just moved in there, that guy had a heart attack and he's up with BB. So Carrie came up and we met Carrie.
Wow.
I mean, just ironic, so they just hit it off,
Sure.
And so he said, could we use your church, for a service? So they started a Wednesday night service. And John Ranney, the pastor at Milford Reformation. So he said he would help us out. He came, played his guitar and sang, and he's just
Right.
wonderful.
Right.
We just love John. And then the people said, well, that's not enough. We need to have a regular church,
Sure.
So they started every other Sunday. We started using the Presbyterian church. And, the attendance increased. At that time, let's see, we had about 32 people were
Wow.
coming each week.
Wow.
And our income was about $3,700 compared
start.
to what we're doing now.
It's a start, sure.
So they knew Don Bauer, because Don Bauer had helped work with the church down in Ocean City.
Mhm.
So he agreed to help us out.
Mhm.
And Marge Schaefer, who's the organist at Presbyterian Church, she got involved. She said, oh, I would, wouldn't mind staying and helping you, So she played for us.
Right.
Well, the other thing, which I don't have in my script, is that, we started paying her, and the Presbyterians had never paid her.
Oh,
She was a
my
volunteer. So that caused a little bit of trouble,
I can imagine.
But anyway, so then John Ranney, he agreed to sponsor our group,
Mhm.
because we needed a sponsor, because we couldn't be an official church at that time.
Right.
And in April of 1992, we we started having Sunday services every week at the Presbyterian Church,
Right.
and it was really growing.
Wow. Now, I always heard that we started with 12 people.
Yes.
How did that
Yes.
come about?
Well, I do skip a page. I'm sorry, I've lost my place here.
Yeah, over 12 people.
Yeah. You threw me there, right? Okay, basically, the group, we came from St. Peter's, and, lost. I think I said that already. Anyway, in 1993, our membership grew to about 63, and our budget at that time was about $12,000. And in 1994, one of our members, Bob Bile, he said that he saw that there was a church building for sale in Omar.
Wow.
And everybody said, well, where the devil is Omar? I never heard of it,
Right.
Said, well, it must be too far for us to travel, from Ocean View to Omar. That's
Oh,
going to be
sure.
too far, So they said, well, let's check it out. So, of course, Bob and a few of them came and they checked it out. And they said, okay. Well, they went to the outreach group and they said, no, we can't do this. We can't put the money into some kind of project like this, And, Barry and Bob said, well, we'll just get the money together ourselves and, use our own money. We'll buy the building, we'll start. So then a good friend of Bob's is Dick Batman. And Dick has since died, but he talked to the new outreach director, Jarrett Hansen. And Jarrett was a really nice guy. He came and talked to us. And so they said, okay, well, we'll purchase the building and then you can lease it, and we'll lease it back to you. Okay. So Bob said, well, you know, actually, Jared, we're saving you a lot of money because it costs about $1 million to start a church. And that's average, I think. And he said, you know, we're saving you a heck of a lot of money. So he wanted a rebate, but that didn't work. And so, in, let's see, 1994, we had our first service here in Omar. And 1995 is when we were actually accepted as a member of the ELCA. So that was a long time. And we actually had our first picnic at Holt's Landing Park in 1995.
Mhm.
And on September 25th, 1995, our charter was signed, and we became an official member of the Delaware, Maryland Senate.
Mhm.
And for several years, Bob and I, we had already been attending the Senate meetings,
Right.
but of course you had to sit in the visitors section, you know,
Yeah.
which really irked him, but you know, we did it. And then, of course, we became official. We got to sit at the table and hold up little cards and voting, and
Yeah.
he was
How
so
exciting.
excited. He was so excited.
Well, Bev, that is one very inspirational story. What disciple stepped forward to serve on council when you first formed?
Well, our first council, we had Larry Agston, who's still around, and of course Dave Barges,
Mhm.
Bob Druckenmiller,
Mhm.
Bob Novotny. Dave Messersmith just died earlier this year. He was 90 years old. And of course Bob, and Ruth Sullivan,
Mhm.
who's now in Pennsylvania, and George Wilhouse, and he's now in New Jersey.
Right. Well, I think 4 of those 8 people are still with us. The others having passed away or moved out of the area. What did you all do for a pastor?
Well, we officially called Pastor Don Bauer as a part-time pastor. I think he was working 20 hours or something like that.
Mhm.
And like I say, he helped start the church down in St. Peter's.
Mhm. Now that's very interesting. Was the building all here? You said you had purchased the building. So was this building here as I know it?
Well, actually, Luther Hall was the whole building.
Oh, okay.
You know, our little sanctuary, our
Right.
little social hall,
Right.
that was the whole building.
Okay.
And of course, we needed more space.
Oh, clearly, clearly.
And 1996, Gordon Narr, he got us some preliminary drawings of, you know, what we could add on to, you know, give us some more space. And in 1997, we actually had a church architect come from the ELCA group and did some sketches for us, you know, for the building. And Sandra Lochnermeyer, she became a part-time pastoral assistant to Pastor Bauer. And of course, Sandy's still with us.
Sure.
And then in April of 1998, Don Bauer said, well, I'm really going to retire. You know, he was into counseling and that sort of thing, both him and Peg.
Mhm.
So Sandra was appointed by Bishop Mako to be licensed lay minister, you know, so we could have communion, that sort of
Sure.
thing. And under the supervision of John Ranney.
Mhm.
And our membership had grown from the original 12 to about 130,
Wow.
and we were taking in about $50,000.
Wow.
So in December '98, we called our first full-time pastor,
Mhm.
which is Pastor John Barton. And he had just moved here, him and Peg had just moved here from Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And everybody liked him. He had attended quite a few services here, and you know, he was just a real friendly, great guy. So, and Peggy, she fit right in, and then she she started our Loose Threads, our
Oh, I
quilting
didn't
group.
understand that. That's interesting.
Yeah. John named our group. He said, Loose Threads. You definitely are Loose Threads. you
Oh,
know.
sure. So at that point, we have a pastor in place now. Did Bob hand the reins over?
That was the type of person Bob was. He would start something, get it going, and then he would say, okay, it's your baby, you're in charge.
Right.
And it was, I think some people were a little surprised by that because he had always been, quote, in charge, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a lot of people would come to him and say, well, Bob, how are we going to do this? Bob, what do we do? He said, hey, we have a pastor.
Right.
Pastor's in charge. You talk to the pastor.
Absolutely.
And John Barton, you know, he said that's one thing that he always remembered about Bob, that he just passed it over to him, wasn't trying to take over or, you know,
Right.
that's just the type of person he was. And after several meetings, we had a lot of meetings, and we had a building committee chaired by Bob Druckenmiller, and they were exploring specific plans for the building.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob Hagelstein, he got a computer drawing together.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Mixon, he actually built a scale model. I don't know if he still has it or not. I would like to have that. We really need it. And Dave Barges, he served on the building expansion coordinator to see about the funding. You know, Dave's all about money.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. He recently uncovered the charts.
Oh, did he?
That showed
Oh, great.
how the donations grew.
Oh, great.
So
That's
it was
good.
very interesting to see that.
That's good, yeah. So in October 2000, the very well-attended congregational meeting voted unanimously to move forward the plans to build a new sanctuary. And of course, our group never gave up. The original 12, they had a dream, and they sacrificed a lot.
Sure.
Really did. And January 2002, we had the groundbreaking and the building began.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so glad that Bob was able to see what was happening. He saw the shell and he got to walk through it and, you know, that sort of thing. And he had actually helped Hagelstein and Druckenmiller
Mm-hmm.
build some of the furniture, you know,
Wow.
that's in the sanctuary, and the narthex too. And he had worked for some time on planning mission churches, you know, because he said that's what we're all about. We're supposed to spread the word.
Absolutely.
And he wanted something in Lewis and Seaford. And I remember he actually did talk to Sandra Wachtemeier, said, why can't you start something in Seaford? You know?
Right.
But it just never happened, you know. So when the people decided they were going to do Grace of God, you know, a group of them left. Fred Zimmerman was in charge of that group at that time, you know, getting the thing moving. And of course, our people were saying, well, you know, how's community going to survive? You know, we're losing all these people. I think it was maybe 13, 14 people at that time. You know, we're going to lose all the money. What are we going to do? We'll never make it, you know. Well, as you can see, we're thriving and we're doing fine.
Sure.
You know, and Grace of God is doing fine. You know, in fact, they're going to be official church at the Senate meeting in June this year, which is fantastic.
That's
You know,
wonderful news.
and unfortunately, Bob died in October of 2002, and he didn't see the finished product. But I know he knows what's going on. You know,
Sure.
and he's always been our angel. He's just
Absolutely.
guided us along.
Absolutely.
Oh, I forgot, I did bring a picture of Bob. And this was taken in front of Blackwater, just down the road here on Omar Road.
Right.
And he used to do a Christmas service there. He did the sermon
Oh, wow.
at Christmas time
Yeah.
several times. You good? And before they put the carpeting down in the new sanctuary,
Mm-hmm.
all the members took black magic markers or whatever, and we wrote like Bible verses and that kind of thing. Up on top of the altar, I wrote Bob's name and
Yeah.
birth date and that kind of stuff, and the day he died. And a lot of people have done the same, you know, wrote
Sure.
little things about Bob. So, then, ironically, these things don't get planned, but since knowing Carrie Shaw, you know, some 20-some years, we ended up getting married in December 2005. And I'm sure, you know, Bob had that plan too. You know. Neither one of us expected that. We'd always been good friends. He was
Right.
always at our house, you know. And I just really think I'm a very lucky person to have two wonderful guys in my life, you know. Because Bob, you know, he should have been a minister, but back then he was raising kids, and, you know, he just,
Right.
for that salary, he could have never made it.
Right.
But Bob and Carrie are very similar.
Yeah.
And not long ago, I was helping Susan Pittenger get the new parish register because our limit was full. So we started working on the new parish register. And we went to write the first name that person was left. I'm going down the list and I said, oh my God, that's me, you know. And she said, oh, you're the new matriarch of the church. I said, oh, I can't believe this, you know, I'm too young for this.
Yeah.
But, so actually there's 4 of us left from the original 12. Most of them have died and, you know, that kind of thing, but the 4 that's still living, of course, Ruth Sullivan, she's up in Pennsylvania,
Yes.
and she comes here, you know, when she can with her son with the music group and all that. Rich Walter, he lost his wife a couple years ago. He moved down to North Carolina. And then George Wilhouse, he also lost his wife Joan, which is a wonderful person, and so he's now in New Jersey close to his kids. So that leaves me.
Sure.
And you know, this has been my family, and it's going to continue to be my family as long as I can attend here.
Absolutely. This is one very inspirational story, Bev, and it's beautiful history for us, and it was something that we all just love to hear. How we started, where we came from, and certainly Bob and all those that followed him were certainly spirit-led.
Yeah.
Absolutely, to bring us up to where we are today, and I think that if he were here, he'd be very, very proud.
So I think it's something that needs to be kept and recorded.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.